The studio lights felt too bright. Commander Zexithera shifted in the specially made chair, trying to find a comfortable position. The mechanical arms clicked softly as they moved. The left leg replacement made a small whirring sound. 50 years had passed since the war ended, but the pain never stopped. Across from the old commander sat Kira Moldovan, the human journalist. She looked young, maybe 40 in human years. Her brown hair was pulled back and her eyes were kind but sharp. Zexithara wondered if she knew the truth about what her people had done during the war. "Thank you for agreeing to this interview, Commander," Kira said. Her voice was calm and professional. This is the first time any coalition veteran has spoken publicly about the First Terran War. Zexithara's 4 good arms adjusted the translator device on the collar. The mechanical ones remained still. Speaking about the war was not easy. The nightmares still came every sleep cycle. No alien doctor understood them. How could they? No other species had fought humans and lived to remember. "Before we begin," Kira continued, "I want our viewers to understand the historical context. 50 years ago, the Galactic Coalition made first contact with humanity. Within 6 months, war broke out. The official records state that the Coalition achieved victory in 18 months. Is that correct?" The commander's throat made a sound like grinding metal. It was supposed to be laughter, but it came out wrong. "Victory," Zexithera repeated. "Yes, that is what the records say. You sound like you disagree with the official version." "I disagree with many things, human Kira. I disagree with the word victory. I disagree with the timeline. I disagree with calling it a war at all." Kira leaned forward slightly. "What would you call it instead?" "A learning experience. A very expensive one." The commanders realized, the ones that still worked properly, stared at something beyond the cameras. The mechanical eye in the center of the forehead clicked as it focused and refocused automatically. "Let me ask you about the beginning," Kira said. "When the Coalition first approached human space, what were the expectations?" Zexithera's memories drifted back. The briefing rooms on the flagship, maps of human territory showing their few dozen star systems, intelligence reports about their primitive technology. Everyone had been so confident. "We expected a simple operation," the commander said. "Humans had just developed faster than light travel. They had small ships, basic weapons, and no experience in galactic warfare. Our analysts compared them to the Gornathi when they first joined the galaxy. Peaceful integration was expected within months. But that's not what happened. No, that is not what happened at all." Zexithara's good hands trembled slightly. The mechanical ones remained perfectly steady, creating an odd contrast. "We made contact with a human exploration ship near what you call the Alpha Centauri system. Standard first contact protocols. We transmitted friendship messages, offered trade agreements, explained the benefits of joining the galactic community." "How did the humans respond?" "They listened politely. They asked many questions about our technology, our military capabilities, our population centers. We thought they were being cautious, which seemed wise for a new species." The commander paused, reaching for a glass of liquid with one mechanical hand. The movements were precise but somehow wrong, like watching a puppet pretend to be alive. 3 days later, our contact ship exploded. No warning, no demands, no declaration of war. It simply became debris in space. We lost 400 crew members. Kira's expression didn't change, but she made a note on her tablet. "The human government claimed that was an accident, didn't they? A malfunction in their reactor systems? That is what they said. We believed them at first. Accidents happen even during peaceful contact. We sent another ship, this time with better shielding and safety protocols. And it also exploded. Then the third one. Then the fourth." The studio was quiet except for the soft humming of the air recyclers. Zexithara's mechanical eye focused on Kira's face, studying her reaction. "The pattern became clear," the commander continued. "Each explosion happened exactly when our ships were in optimal position for humans to scan our technology. Each blast left specific debris patterns that would give humans maximum information about our ship construction. Each incident happened after our crews had answered detailed questions about Coalition military structure." "You're saying the explosions were deliberate? That humans were studying you?" "I am saying humans were already preparing for war before we knew war was possible. While we talked about friendship and trade, they were learning how to kill us." Kira set down her tablet. "Commander, that's a serious accusation. Human records from that time show genuine attempts at peaceful contact. The commander's laugh was that grinding metal sound again. Human records. Yes, I am sure they do. Tell me, human Kira, do your records mention the mining stations? Which mining stations? The ones that didn't exist until we scanned them. The ones that appeared overnight in asteroid fields throughout human space. The ones that were obviously weapon platforms disguised as industrial facilities. Zexthara's voice became quieter, more intense. While our diplomats discussed trade routes, humans were building gun emplacements. While our scientists offered technological exchange, humans were designing ships specifically to fight coalition vessels. They had war plans ready before we even knew we were enemies. The coalition responded with military force, though. The official timeline shows coalition ships entering human space 6 months after first contact. We had no choice. Our intelligence reports showed massive military buildup throughout human territory. Ships that were clearly warships, not exploration vessels. Weapons designed to exploit specific weaknesses in coalition shielding. Training programs that could only be for combat against our species. The commander shifted again, mechanical parts clicking. The High Command made the decision to neutralize the threat before humans could launch a surprise attack. It seemed logical. It seemed necessary. But you personally disagreed with that decision? Zexithara was quiet for a long time. The mechanical eye stopped moving and focused on the floor. I thought humans were like other species. I thought they would see reason when faced with superior force. I thought they would surrender when the choice was between submission and extinction. They didn't surrender. No. They did something else. Something no species in galactic history had ever done. What did they do? The commander looked directly at Kira, all 3 eyes focusing on her face. They smiled. When our fleet appeared over their first colony world, when we broadcast surrender demands, when we showed them exactly how outgunned and outnumbered they were, the human commander smiled. And then he said something that still gives me nightmares. He said, "Thank you for coming. We've been waiting for you." Zexthara's voice dropped to almost a whisper. That was when I realized we had made a terrible mistake. We thought we were starting a war, but humans had been planning one all along. The question was not whether they would fight us. The question was how long they had been preparing to do it. Kira leaned back in her chair. "Commander, before we continue, I need to ask you something directly. Why are you telling me this now? Why break 50 years of silence?" The old alien warrior was quiet for a moment. Then slowly, all 4 good arms moved to rest on the table. "Because the nightmares never stop, human Kira. Because no alien therapist understands what we saw your people do. Because I need someone to know the truth before I die." "What truth?" "That your official records are lies. That the war never really ended. And that every species in the galaxy lives in fear of the day humans decide they want something we have." The memory hit Zexithara like a physical blow. Even after 50 years, the commander could recall every detail of that first battle. The smell of burning circuits in the command center. The taste of fear in the air recyclers. The sound of alarms that wouldn't stop. "Tell me about the first engagement," Kira said softly. "What happened when coalition forces entered human space?" Zexithara's mechanical hands gripped the edge of the table. "We approached the outer colonies with standard battle formation. 3 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, 46 fighters, against a human settlement of maybe 50,000 people with a handful of civilian ships." The commander's real eyes stared past Kira, seeing something that wasn't in the studio. The intelligence reports said humans had no military experience, no understanding of space combat, no proper weapons. We expected them to run or surrender immediately. But they didn't. They didn't run. They didn't surrender. They didn't even seem afraid. Zexithara's voice became hollow, distant. The human ships moved toward us. Not away from us, toward us. Our tactical officer said they were probably trying to surrender in person. Standard procedure for primitive species who don't understand communication protocols. The commander paused, reaching for the liquid again. The mechanical hand shook slightly this time. The first human ship was a cargo vessel, old, slow, barely armed. It came straight at our flagship. Our communications officer tried to contact them, tell them to stop. They responded immediately. What did they say? They were singing. Kira blinked. Singing? Some kind of human war song. Our translator couldn't handle all the words, but it was about fighting and dying and something called glory. The human pilot was laughing while he sang. Actually laughing. Zexthara's mechanical eye clicked rapidly, focusing and refocusing as if trying to process something impossible. The cargo ship accelerated, directly at us. Our weapons officer asked for permission to fire, but the captain said no. It was just one small ship. What could it do to a dreadnought? The studio lights reflected off the mechanical arms as they moved restlessly. The human ship hit our forward shield array. The explosion was significant, much more significant than it should have been. Our engineers later determined the humans had somehow overloaded their reactor core at the moment of impact. They deliberately crashed into your ship? Not just crashed, they turned their ship into a bomb. A very effective bomb. The explosion damaged our main shield generators and killed 17 crew members in the forward sections. Kira made notes on her tablet. Was this considered unusual behavior for the humans? The grinding metal laugh again. We thought it was desperation. A panicked response by primitives who didn't understand real warfare. Our analysts said it was proof that humans would exhaust themselves quickly in pointless suicide attacks. But there were more attacks? The second human ship approached while we were still dealing with damage from the first. This one was a passenger liner. Completely unarmed. It should have been harmless. Zexthara's voice grew quieter. The liner came in at an angle, moving much faster than its design specifications allowed. Our scans showed the engines were running far beyond safe limits. They should have exploded from the stress, did they? Eventually. But not until after the ship rammed our cruiser Valiant Dawn. The explosion broke the cruiser in half. The commander's real hands began to shake now, matching the mechanical ones. That was when we realized something was wrong. One suicide attack might be desperation. Two was a pattern. The humans weren't panicking. They were executing a plan. What kind of plan? They had studied our ships during the so-called peaceful contact period. They knew exactly where to hit us for maximum damage. They had modified their own vessels specifically for ramming attacks. The reactor overloads weren't accidental. They were weapons. Zexthara stood up suddenly, the mechanical legs whirring as they adjusted to support the old body. The commander walked to the studio window, looking out at the city beyond. The third attack was different. A small human fighter, barely big enough for one pilot. It came in fast, dodging our defensive fire with impossible precision. No computer could calculate those movements. Only a living pilot could react that quickly. The pilot survived the attack? No, that was the point. The fighter struck our ammunition storage bay and detonated the entire forward magazine. We lost 200 crew members in that explosion. The commander turned back to face Kira. But before the fighter hit, we managed to get a visual scan of the pilot, a young human female, maybe 25 standard years. She was wounded, bleeding from the head. Her life support was failing. And she was smiling. Even with death seconds away, even with her ship breaking apart around her, she was smiling. Zexthara returned to the chair, mechanical parts clicking with each movement. That image haunts me more than any other. The expression on her face wasn't fear or desperation or even determination. It was joy. Pure, genuine joy. The humans were enjoying the battle. They were enjoying the sacrifice. Each pilot who died took out a section of our fleet. To them, it was a fair trade. Better than fair. They thought they were winning. The commander's voice became almost inaudible. After the third attack, our captain ordered full withdrawal. We had lost one cruiser, suffered major damage to the flagship, and watched 3 humans die by choice. The tactical situation made no sense. But the humans didn't let you withdraw. They followed us. Every human ship in the system, civilian and military alike, came after us. Transport vessels, mining ships, even personal craft, all of them trying to ram our ships, all of them singing those war songs. Zexthara's mechanical eye focused on Kira's face. Do you understand what I am telling you, human Kira? Your people turned retreat into a running battle. They chased a fleet 10 times their size across an entire star system, sacrificing ship after ship just to do more damage. How many humans died in that first battle? All of them. Every human in that system. 8,000 people dead in 6 hours. And coalition losses. The commander was quiet for a long moment. 1 cruiser destroyed, 2 dreadnoughts heavily damaged. Over 400 crew members dead. Against civilian ships and converted cargo vessels. That's when Coalition Command realized humans were dangerous? No. That's when Coalition Command decided humans were insane. The battle reports made no sense to anyone who read them. No species fights that way. No species throws away lives for such small tactical advantages. Zexthara's real hands clenched into fists. But we learned something important that day. Humans don't calculate acceptable losses the same way other species do. To us, losing 8,000 people to kill 400 enemies is a disaster. To humans, it was a good start. What happened next? High Command ordered a larger fleet to human space. If humans wanted to fight, we would show them what real warfare looked like. We would demonstrate the futility of resistance against superior technology and numbers. The commander's laugh was bitter now. We still thought we could teach humans to be reasonable. We still believed they would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They didn't. No, human Kira. They did something much worse. They learned. Zexthara looked directly at the camera for the first time since the interview began. Every human who died in that first battle had transmitted combat data to their commanders. They had recorded our ship movements, our weapon signatures, our tactical responses. They died to gather intelligence. Intelligence for what? For the trap they were building at Europa Station. The trap that would teach us what humans really were. Kira refilled her water glass while Zexthara sat in silence. The commander's mechanical eye had stopped moving completely, locked in a 1,000-yard stare that seemed to see through the studio walls into some terrible past. Commander, you mentioned Europa Station, but our records show the heaviest fighting took place at New Stalingrad. Can you tell me about that siege? The old warrior's entire body went rigid. Both real hands gripped the armrests of the chair so tightly that the metal creaked. The mechanical arms remained perfectly still, but somehow conveyed more tension than the organic ones. New Stalingrad, Zexthara whispered. 8 months. 8 months of hell. The official coalition reports describe it as a mining colony of minimal strategic value. Why did the siege last so long? The commander's laugh was not mechanical grinding this time. It was something worse, something broken. Minimal strategic value. Yes, that's what our intelligence said. A small world with maybe 2 million humans. Basic mining operations. No military installations. No significant defenses. But those reports were wrong. Those reports were lies. Human lies. Everything about New Stalingrad was a lie designed to draw us in. Zexthara's voice became flat, emotionless, as if reciting a technical manual. We approached the system with overwhelming force. 5 dreadnoughts, 30 cruisers, 200 fighters, and a full ground assault division. Against a mining world that supposedly had no army. What did you find instead? We found a fortress, not built on the planet's surface, but built into the planet itself. Humans had spent months, maybe years, turning their entire world into a weapon. The commander stood again, pacing restlessly around the interview area. The mechanical legs made soft clicking sounds with each step. The first sign something was wrong came when we entered the system. Our long-range scans detected massive underground complexes. Our analysts said they were mining tunnels. We believed them because we wanted to believe them. The humans were preparing for siege warfare. Preparing doesn't cover what they did. They had studied every siege in galactic history. They knew exactly how coalition forces would approach a planetary assault. They had months to prepare for our arrival. Zexthara stopped pacing and faced Kira directly. Do you know what your people did to their own world, human Kira? Do you know what they sacrificed just to hurt us? Tell me. They poisoned their own water supplies. Not with random toxins, but with carefully designed biological agents. Harmless to humans, lethal to most alien species. Any coalition soldier who tried to drink local water would die within hours. The commander's mechanical hands clenched into fists. But that was just the beginning. They contaminated their food supplies with combat stimulants. Every human civilian became a potential berserker. Men and women who should have been running for shelter instead threw themselves at our soldiers with improvised weapons. The civilians fought back. Civilians? There were no civilians on New Stalingrad. Every human on that world was a combatant. Children as young as 10 years carried explosive devices. Elderly humans too weak to walk operated hidden gun emplacements. Pregnant women served as suicide bombers. Zexthara's voice cracked slightly. We tried to establish safe zones for non-combatants. The humans used those zones as staging areas for attacks. We offered medical aid to wounded civilians. They booby-trapped their own injured. Kira set down her tablet, her expression troubled. Commander, you're describing war crimes. War crimes? The grinding laugh returned. Human Kira, your people didn't commit war crimes. They rewrote the definition of war itself. The commander sat back down heavily. We had rules, you see. Conventions about protecting civilians, about proportional response, about acceptable weapons. Humans ignored every single rule. Can you give me specific examples? The children's toys. We found explosive devices disguised as dolls and game pieces. Our demolition experts couldn't disarm them because they were designed to look harmless. Coalition soldiers started dying when they tried to clear debris from schools and playgrounds. Zexithara's real eyes closed tightly. The psychological warfare was worse. Humans would hide speakers in the walls of abandoned buildings. All night long we heard recordings of human laughter mixed with screaming. Our sleep cycles were completely disrupted. Soldiers started hallucinating from exhaustion. How did Coalition Command respond to these tactics? They ordered increased firepower. If humans wanted to fight dirty, we would simply destroy everything from orbit. Level the cities, eliminate the population, turn the world into glass, but that didn't work either. It couldn't work. Humans had spent months moving their population underground. The tunnel systems were deeper and more complex than anything we had ever seen. They had built an entire civilization beneath the surface. The commander's mechanical eye began clicking rapidly again. Every time we destroyed a surface installation, humans would respond by attacking our ships from hidden launch sites. They had somehow moved space-capable weapons into those tunnels. Missiles would suddenly appear from what looked like empty ground. The siege dragged on for months. 8 months of constant fighting. 8 months of watching humans do things that no rational species would ever consider. They used their own dead as weapons, launching corpses filled with diseases designed to target alien biology. Zexithara's voice became hollow. The worst part was their attitude. After months of siege, after losing hundreds of thousands of people, after watching their world burn, they were still optimistic. Still confident they were winning. How could they think they were winning? Because every day they survived was a victory. Every coalition soldier who died was a celebration. Every ship they damaged was proof their strategy was working. The commander's hands began shaking again. We realized they weren't trying to win the siege. They were trying to make it so expensive that we would never want to fight humans again. Did it work? Oh yes, it worked perfectly. By month 6, coalition morale was completely broken. Our soldiers were refusing direct orders. 3 different ship captains requested transfers to other fronts. The ground assault division had to be rotated out twice. Zexithara looked directly at Kira. Do you want to know how the siege finally ended, human Kira? Yes, the humans won. Not by defeating us, but by leaving. One morning, our sensors detected massive movement in the tunnel systems. Tens of thousands of humans moving toward the northern continent. We thought it was a retreat, a final attempt to escape the siege. The commander's voice became very quiet. It was an evacuation, through a minefield. The humans had rigged their escape route with their own explosives. They knew that 30% of their population would die in the crossing. They considered it an acceptable loss. They chose to sacrifice their own people rather than surrender. They chose to deny us the satisfaction of victory. When our forces finally entered the abandoned cities, we found nothing but corpses and booby traps. The humans had destroyed everything useful and taken everyone valuable with them. Zexithara stood up one more time, walking to the window. The final message from the human commander is still classified, but I will tell you what it said. What did it say? Thank you for the training exercise. We learned a lot. See you soon. The studio was completely silent for a long moment. Training exercise? Kira finally asked. That's when we realized the truth about New Stalingrad. It wasn't a colony we were besieging. It was a school, a place where humans were learning how to fight us. The commander turned back to face the camera. Every tactic we used, every weakness we revealed, every mistake we made was recorded and transmitted to other human worlds. 2 million people died on New Stalingrad, but their deaths brought humanity the knowledge they needed to fight the rest of the war. And the humans who evacuated? They became teachers, veterans who traveled to other human worlds, training populations in siege warfare. By the time we realized what had happened, every human colony in the galaxy had become another New Stalingrad. Zexithara sat down heavily. That was when Coalition High Command finally understood what we were fighting. Not an army, not a government, not even a species. We were fighting an idea. The idea that dying to hurt your enemy is not just acceptable, but glorious. The interview had been going for 3 hours. Kira noticed that Zexithara's movements had become more erratic, the mechanical parts clicking and whirring with increasing frequency. The commander seemed to be fighting some internal battle, as if each memory brought physical pain. Commander, we've been talking about human defensive tactics, Kira said carefully. But the war lasted much longer than the 8-month siege. What changed? Zexithera's three eyes all focused on different points in the room, never quite meeting Kira's gaze. What changed was us. We stopped treating humans like a normal enemy and started treating them like a disease that had to be eliminated. Coalition strategy became more aggressive. Coalition strategy became desperate. High Command decided that conventional warfare wasn't working. If humans wanted to fight without rules, we would fight without rules too. The commander's real hands rubbed at temples where old scars were visible. We brought in the crystalline warships, ships designed to crack planets. We prepared biological weapons that would sterilize entire star systems. We were ready to commit genocide to end the war. But you didn't? We couldn't. Every time we prepared a final solution, humans would do something that changed the entire battlefield. They didn't just adapt to our tactics, they made our tactics irrelevant. Zexithera stood and began pacing again, the mechanical legs moving in perfect rhythm. The first innovation that terrified us was their use of the dead. Human corpses became weapons. You mentioned this during the new Stalingrad siege. That was just the beginning. After the siege, humans started launching their dead at our ships. Not just corpses, but corpses modified with diseases specifically designed to target alien biology. The commander stopped pacing, mechanical eye clicking rapidly. Our medical officers couldn't understand how humans had developed these biological weapons so quickly. It should have taken years of research to create diseases that affected multiple alien species. How did they do it? They used their own bodies as laboratories. Humans deliberately infected themselves with modified bacteria, then monitored how the diseases affected their own biology. They used their own suffering as research data. Kira's expression showed disgust and fascination in equal measure. They experimented on themselves? Worse than that. They volunteered for it. Our intelligence intercept showed humans competing for the chance to test biological weapons on their own bodies. They treated martyrdom like a privilege. Zexithera's voice became clinical, detached. The biological warfare escalated rapidly. Humans developed viruses that could survive in space vacuum, bacteria that would lie dormant for months before activating, diseases that targeted specific alien species while remaining harmless to humans. How did coalition forces respond? We developed countermeasures, better medical facilities, improved quarantine procedures, protective suits for boarding operations. We thought we had solved the biological threat. The commander's laugh was that familiar grinding sound. Then humans started using psychological warfare. They had studied our species, learned what frightened us, what made us lose control. What kind of psychological tactics? They would broadcast recordings during night cycles, sounds that mimicked our species' distress calls mixed with human laughter. Our sleep patterns were disrupted so badly that entire crews became non-functional. Zexithera's mechanical hands clenched and unclenched repeatedly. But the worst was when they captured our communications equipment. Humans somehow modified our own technology to broadcast directly into our ship's internal systems. What did they broadcast? Stories. Human stories about wars they had fought among themselves. Tales of battles where millions died for small pieces of territory. Descriptions of weapons they had used against their own species. The commander's voice dropped to a whisper. We learned that humans had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. Not by accident, but deliberately. They had built these weapons and pointed them at themselves as a form of diplomatic pressure. Nuclear weapons. Worse than nuclear weapons. Humans had created devices that could crack continental plates, poison atmospheres for centuries, even alter the orbit of their homeworld, and they had been willing to use these weapons against themselves. Zexithera sat down again, all arms resting on the table. That was when we realized humans weren't just willing to die in battle. They were willing to destroy their own civilization rather than accept defeat. But surely coalition technology was still superior. It was, until humans started capturing our equipment and modifying it in ways that violated fundamental physics. The commander's mechanical eye focused on Kira's face. A Velinarian shield generator is designed to deflect energy weapons. The design principles are based on quantum field manipulation that took my species thousands of years to develop. Humans learned to use your technology. Humans learned to break our technology. They somehow modified captured shield generators into planet-cracking weapons. Equipment designed to protect became equipment designed to destroy. Zexithera's voice became filled with a mixture of admiration and horror. Our engineers studied the modifications. According to our understanding of physics, what humans had done was impossible. The energy requirements alone should have destroyed the devices. But they worked? They worked perfectly. Humans had somehow bypassed safety limitations that were built into the fundamental design. They had turned defensive technology into offensive weapons through pure trial and error. The commander stood and walked to the window again. That was when our scientists realized something terrifying about human innovation. They don't understand the science behind their modifications. They just keep trying things until something works. Experimentation without theory. Experimentation without regard for consequences. Humans would modify captured technology, even if the modifications had a 90% chance of killing everyone involved. The 10% chance of success was worth the risk. Zexithera turned back to face Kira. Do you know what human engineers called these modification sessions? What? Fun. They called them fun. The studio was quiet except for the soft clicking of mechanical parts. Kira made notes while the commander stood motionless, lost in memory. The psychological impact on coalition forces was devastating. Zexithera continued. We were fighting an enemy that treated physics as optional and death as entertainment. Our military doctrine had no response to opponents who considered mutual destruction a victory condition. Coalition morale collapsed. Worse than collapsed. Our soldiers started refusing to board captured human ships because the modifications were so unstable they might explode at any moment. Our engineers wouldn't work on human technology because it defied everything they understood about science. The commander's real hands began shaking again. But the final horror was when humans started volunteering. For suicide missions, you mentioned suicide attacks before, not attacks, missions, long-term operations where humans would deliberately place themselves in situations where survival was impossible, just to gather intelligence or cause specific types of damage. Zexithera's voice became hollow. We intercepted communications showing humans arguing about who would get to pilot ships into black holes to test gravitational weapons, fighting for the privilege of staying conscious during kamikaze runs to make final course corrections. They volunteered for these missions. They competed for them. Humans developed psychological profiles to determine who would be most effective in suicide operations. They had selection criteria for choosing the best candidates for certain death. The commander sat down heavily. That was when Coalition High Command finally understood what we were fighting. Not just a species willing to die, but a species that had weaponized their own willingness to die. How do you fight an enemy like that? You don't. You surrender. You negotiate. You find a way to make peace before they decide that mutual annihilation is an acceptable outcome. Zexithera looked directly at the camera. Because the most terrifying thing about humans isn't their technology or their tactics or even their willingness to sacrifice everything. It's that they genuinely believe that destroying both sides is better than letting the other side win. The interview had reached its 5th hour. Studio technicians had brought fresh water and checked equipment twice. Kira noticed that Zexithera seemed calmer now, as if finally speaking these truths had lifted some burden from the old warrior's shoulders. Commander, we've discussed the escalation of the war, but the official records state that coalition forces achieved victory after 18 months. How did the war actually end? Zexithera's 3 eyes all focused on Kira for the first time since the interview began. The war ended, human Kira, because we discovered humanity's final protocol. What was the final protocol? The plan your people had prepared if Earth itself faced invasion. The plan that made every species in the galaxy understand what humans truly were. The commander's mechanical hands moved restlessly across the table surface. Our intelligence services had finally infiltrated human communications networks. We thought we were learning their defensive strategies, their military capabilities, their population centers. But you found something else? We found a detailed plan for the systematic destruction of the Sol system. Not just Earth, but every planet, every space station, every human installation in your home system. Zexithera's voice became very quiet. The plan called for detonating your sun. Kira's expression showed genuine shock. That's impossible. No species has the technology to destroy a star. No species except humans. Your scientists had calculated that a series of precisely placed nuclear devices could trigger a cascade reaction in Sol's core. The explosion would sterilize every world within 30 light years. The commander leaned forward in the chair. But that wasn't the terrifying part. The terrifying part was the casualty projections. Human analysts had calculated that destroying Sol would kill approximately 400 billion sentient beings across dozens of star systems. And humans were willing to do this? Not just willing, eager. The communications we intercepted showed human leaders arguing about when to implement the final protocol. Some wanted to trigger it immediately if coalition forces entered the Sol system. Others wanted to wait until Earth itself was invaded. Sexithera's mechanical eye clicked rapidly, but the consensus was clear. If humanity faced extinction, they would take as much of the galaxy with them as possible. You're telling me humans were prepared to commit genocide on an interstellar scale? I'm telling you humans had already committed to it. The devices were built, placed, and armed. The final protocol wasn't a threat or a bluff. It was an active weapons system waiting for someone to push a button. The commander stood and walked to the window one final time. Coalition High Command received this intelligence during our preparation for the final assault on Earth. 3,000 ships, the largest military force in galactic history, ready to end the human threat permanently. What was the Coalition's response? Panic, absolute panic. Our military leaders realized that attacking Earth wouldn't just result in victory, it would result in the destruction of the galactic core. Sexithara's reflection in the window showed all three eyes focused on something beyond the horizon. The emergency session lasted for days. Military advisors, civilian leaders, scientists from every coalition species, all trying to find a solution to an impossible problem. How do you negotiate with someone holding a galactic doomsday device? Very carefully, very respectfully, and with the absolute understanding that they are not bluffing. The commander turned back to face Kira. The Coalition's first diplomatic contact with Earth was not a demand for surrender. It was a request for terms. Terms? Humanity's conditions for not implementing the final protocol. The price for allowing the rest of the galaxy to continue existing. Sexithara's voice took on an ironic tone. The human demands were surprisingly reasonable. Complete recognition of human sovereignty over their territory. Formal membership in the galactic community. Trade agreements. Diplomatic immunity. Standard requests from any emerging civilization. That seems too simple. It was too simple. Coalition negotiators kept waiting for the real demands. The tribute payments, the territorial concessions, the subjugation treaties. But humans didn't want any of those things. The commander sat down for the final time. What humans wanted was much more dangerous than conquest. They wanted respect. Respect? Recognition that humanity was not just another emerging species to be guided and controlled. Acknowledgement that human territory was sovereign and human decisions were final. Acceptance that humans would solve their own problems in their own way. Sexithara's laugh was different now. Less mechanical. More genuinely amused. The Coalition leadership found this terrifying. A species that would destroy half the galaxy for abstract concepts like dignity and independence was completely outside their understanding. But the Coalition agreed to these terms? The Coalition had no choice. Every analysis showed that humans would implement the final protocol if their demands were rejected. Every psychological profile indicated that humans genuinely preferred mutual destruction to submission. The commander's mechanical hands gestured toward the camera. The peace treaty was signed within weeks. Full recognition of human sovereignty, immediate cessation of hostilities, and formal apology for the unprovoked attack on human space. And the final protocol? Still active. Still armed, still ready for implementation at a moment's notice. Kira set down her tablet completely. Commander, you're saying that 50 years later, humans still have the ability to destroy the galactic core? I'm saying humans have spent 50 years improving that ability. Current intelligence estimates suggest they can now destroy multiple star systems simultaneously. The final protocol has become the final protocols. Sexithara's three eyes all focused on Kira's face. Do you want to know why no species has attacked humanity in 50 years, human Kira? It's not because we respect you. It's not because we fear your military. It's not even because we understand you. Why then? Because we finally realized what you are. A species that treats extinction as a tactical option. A species that considers universal annihilation preferable to personal defeat. A species that will burn down the galaxy before allowing anyone else to control it. The commander leaned back in the chair. All mechanical parts finally still. Every alien child learns about humans in school now. Not as heroes or villains, but as a force of nature, like a hurricane or a volcano. Something to be respected, avoided, and never provoked. And the Coalition's current relationship with humanity? Excellent. Humanity receives every consideration, every courtesy, every diplomatic privilege. Human requests are processed immediately. Human complaints are addressed with urgent priority. Human territory is absolutely respected. Zexthara's voice took on a sardonic tone. We have learned that keeping humans happy is much safer than trying to defeat them. But surely some species must resent this situation. Some do. But those species are reminded of what happened during the First Terran War. They are shown the casualty reports, the tactical analyses, the psychological evaluations. They are told about the final protocol. The commander looked directly at the camera one last time, and then they are asked a simple question. Is your pride worth more than the continued existence of galactic civilization? What do they usually answer? Nothing. They stop complaining about human privileges and start being grateful that humans are generally reasonable neighbors. Kira glanced at her notes one final time. Commander, before we conclude, I have to ask, why are you telling me this now? Why reveal classified information about the final protocol? Zexithara was quiet for a long moment. When the commander spoke again, the voice was weary, old, and somehow relieved. Because yesterday human diplomats approached 17 different star systems with offers of mutual defense treaties. Every single government accepted immediately. And that concerns you? It terrifies me. Because mutual defense treaties with humans don't just mean they will help protect you. They mean you become part of their final protocol calculations. The commander's mechanical eye focused on something beyond the camera. Humanity is expanding their definition of acceptable losses to include their allies. Any attack on treaty partners will now trigger the same response as an attack on Earth itself. The final protocol has become galactic policy? The final protocol has become galactic law. Humanity has successfully made their survival equivalent to universal survival. Any species that threatens human interests now threatens the continued existence of all galactic civilization. Zexthara stood up slowly, mechanical parts whirring with the effort. This interview will be broadcast across the galaxy as my final service to galactic peace. A reminder to any species considering conflict with humanity about what they are truly risking. And what are they risking? Everything. They are risking everything. The commander walked toward the studio exit, then paused and looked back at Kira one final time. The most terrifying thing about humans, young journalist, is not that they are willing to die for their beliefs. It is that they are willing to take the entire universe with them. The studio lights dimmed as Zexithara disappeared through the doorway, mechanical legs clicking against the floor with each step. In the sudden silence, Kira realized that the interview had not just been a revelation about the past. It had been a warning about the future.